The Drum Candy podcast is brought to you by Drum Factory Direct.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome into episode 49 of the Drum Candy podcast. This is your host, Mike Dawson, coming to you from Drum Factory Direct in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This week's guest is the great modern jazz drummer, band leader, composer, Jonathan Barber. Jonathan is putting out his third record with his band Vision Ahead. It comes out May 13th. It is called Poetic. You should definitely check that out. This whole episode is largely based on leading a band, what that involves, how he composes for the band, how he balances the business side of being a band leader versus being a musician. And then, of course, we have our gear talk, his favorite cymbals, his favorite drums. This is a really fun episode. Let's get to it. Jonathan Barber. So before I started recording, you were talking about preparing for the tour, and literally the first question that I have on my list is, what does it mean to be a band leader when touring with a jazz group?
Well, I think being a band leader, you have to have a vision. You know, I think is more than just about booking a show, you know, or calling, players to come together to put some music together. I think you have to have some kind of concept, some musical concept, whatever that is. It could be macro or micro, but for me, I think it's about having an understanding of the music that you're trying to play and how each player can incorporate their own artistry and their own genius to it. And in today's time, I think it's important that if you do have a band, it's important to, document and kind of have some kind of product or brand that people can kind of latch onto and understand what you're about.
What was the original vision for your band, Vision Ahead? What was the concept?
Yeah, so in the very beginning, I started to, book shows myself, and most of the members, or majority of the members of Vision Ahead, we all went to college together, the Jack McLean Institute at the University of Hartford. And so we were constantly playing a lot together. We were shedding together, just playing tunes and writing music, but not really thinking of nothing of it. And so once I started booking shows, and at first it was just like the Jonathan Barber Quartet. And then I started to realize wow, we really sound good together. We really have this synergy. It's almost like a language that we all created amongst each other. And then we moved to New York together. And I think the turning point was when I started doing the residency at Smalls on Mondays at 1 a.m., believe it or not. That was a thing before the pandemic, New York was really the city that never sleeps. And so I was doing that. And so I hired the guys. And then once people started to kind of be like, oh, wow, they started checking us out, I kind of realized that, all right, I needed to take it to the next level and really have something, kind of branded in such a way. And then that's why I kind of gave the name Vision Ahead. But sonically, I think I'm really big into bands. I'm really, I think I'm kind of band mindset first. I like to kind of accompany more than solo. And like I said, with bands, I was really into the Yellow Jackets, Weather Report, and I admire bands like the Beatles, the Roots, something that has an identity, the Jazz Messengers. And so I kind of wanted to, I guess, implement those same sensibilities with I guess, my vision. And so ideally, I think when you hear Vision Ahead, it's you're going to hear a group of guys that sound really mature and sound really good together, and everyone plays like a team, and it's kind of like this oneness kind of thing. And that's what I try to push with my group.
Is it the same members the whole time?
Yep, same members. And again, once I moved to New York, I kind of wanted to open the band to a quintet, not just a quartet. So again, from college to the beginning of my New York career, It was myself, Taber Gable on piano, Andrew Renfroe on guitar, Matt Dwonszyk on bass. And so after a while, I was just like, okay, I really want that fifth member. And so then I was kind of looking around, and then it just hit me that, Godwin Louis is a fantastic alto saxophonist who's from Bridgeport, Connecticut. So this whole band is kind of like a Connecticut-based band, which is really special to me. And so once the first gig, I knew right away, like, oh yeah, this is it. Like, this is the group. And so, I'm approaching my third studio record, I guess like my fourth album, but my third studio record. And it's the same members. So it's kind of, it's kind of that camaraderie of guys, that, we're in it, you know what I mean? Like, and I think each record, you kind of can hear the maturity, you can see the growth and really hear the direction that we're trying to go into.
Do you have to like coordinate with everyone's schedules? I mean, is there like a spoken or unspoken commitment? Like, we'll do this first, but we have to work around other gigs. I mean,
yeah, I mean, primarily like if I can get, if 3 out of 5 members of the band can make the show, I'll probably do the show. And if it's just like one person that can do the show, I might like bail out on it. Just because I have a respect for my music and I have respect for the direction, and I want the listener to kind of, what they hear on the record, I want them to feel it live and even better. I think the record is just a taste of it, of what we're actually capable of doing in a sense. So, I try to keep it consistent that way. But, first off, I try to tell them far in advance, So if I'm, booking shows or putting a tour together, or, I'm always like way, way, way in advance, because 9 times out of 10 their schedules are open. So it kind of gives me a fair shot to, book them.
How far in advance do you have to work? Like 6 months, 3 months?
Between 4 to 6.
Okay.
And again, I think the further out, the better, just because, you have more wiggle room to kind of, move some dates around with certain venues, if necessary. So, I will always tell people, like, think of like plan a season ahead, so right now we're entering to the spring, the summer is already done, so you should be thinking about the fall and even the winter. And so that will kind of give you, again, some more room to, more possibilities of getting dates and kind of linking some dates and things of that nature.
And did you study business or anything? You kind of have like a business mindset with this.
Yeah, it's crazy. I didn't. I got a music performance degree at University of Harvard. But I will say I have to tip my hat to like just band leaders that I've, been under, and just kind of seeing the game and just being curious. And I think the first person that kind of led me to that was Jeremy Pelt. So, who's a great trumpet player. I would say after I graduated college, this is 2011, I joined his band. And that's when I started touring internationally. And he did, and to this day, he books everything himself. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, where he doesn't necessarily have to answer to nobody, doesn't have to wait for nobody. He kind of builds that relationship himself and accumulates his own resources. And so I've been watching him do that for many years. And I kind of, took that on too, because if you're a signer or have a booking agent, I think it's beautiful and wonderful. But for some artists, everyone doesn't get that opportunity because, there's certain aesthetics that, maybe society or certain agencies may want. But that shouldn't discourage you. It's just kind of like, there's always another way. And that's what I kind of realized with business is just like, you might have one, goal in mind or one thought to achieve something, but it can always be done another way if it doesn't work out initially. So, I think like over time, I've built this kind of do it yourself. And I think that's like the best teacher, because I see what I could have done better. I see what worked. I see what this person's doing. So I'm kind of like taking all these, isms from different people and like just investing in myself, which is, I think, the best investment that one can make.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about all your responsibilities that aren't on the bandstand as a band leader. What's your, let's go like most time consuming down to actually playing the drums.
Oh man, yeah. So I would say like probably like transportation, as far as if we're talking about touring, I think that's like the biggest. That's the biggest one. You know, from the airport to the hotel to the venue, like how's that going to work out? Obviously, flights. And really like a schedule, an itinerary. Like my band, they always text me. Like they just text me, some of them last week, about sending an itinerary, which I was working on it, but I had to like hustle a little bit, just so that they can know the schedule. And I think that kind of brings clarity amongst the group, because when, you're touring, it can be draining. And sometimes if you don't know what's going on, it can just add, maybe, add more frustration or, things like that. So I think those things, honestly, for me, is like the morale of the band. I think that's something like really important. I try to be positive and lead by example, as far as how to conduct certain situations, and try to keep this energy, pure amongst us. I'll say some of those things that's what kind of comes to mind. That's what I've been doing lately, just making sure, all right, this is cool. Everybody has their own room. We know where we're getting to, and like budgeting, making sure that, I'm not in the red, or even if I am, like, it's not that bad.
Yeah. So are you doing mostly fly-ins with this group, or do you rent a van and book it around the country?
Yeah. I mean, now, it's kind of fly-ins because we're kind of spread out. So me and the bass player, we're in Connecticut. Godwin is in Boston. Taber is in Tennessee, and Andrew is in LA. But with this tour, I booked some stuff in New England. So basically, I'm flying in Taber and Andrew to Connecticut, and then we have a first show in Connecticut. Then we're going to drive to Boston. Then we're driving to New York, and then we're going to fly to LA. So it's kind of a mixture of both. But once I have like an anchor date, like a date that's like pretty solid and pretty financially stable, I try to bring everyone together, and then take it from there and travel and drive or fly.
It's a lot. It's a lot to take care of.
Yeah.
Now, what about show days? Like, how do you switch from, tour manager or band leader to like, it's time to make some art here?
Yeah. I mean, the moment I get on the drums, then it's just like, it's game time. Okay. Like I put all that stuff to the side, driving there, it's kind of like the tour manager hat. But the moment like I put my bags down and put those cymbals on the cymbal stand, it's just like, all right, now I'm an artist and I have to lock in and create and be as present as possible. And so, I try to, just like, I guess, find that balance, because I think with music, both exist. You just can't get around it. You can, shed all day and be this phenomenal drummer, but if you don't have the business together, you're going to miss out on certain things or not live up to your potential. But I think the moment I sit down, man, I'm just like, I'm locked in, and when I play, like nothing, I'm not even thinking about anything else besides the music. So, at that moment, I can care less about the flight tomorrow or whatever. It's just like, I'm trying to hit.
So, I mean, you might have already covered this a little bit, but making, we're on a path as a sideman to, you playing with some of the best. So what does having your own band give you that maybe that doesn't, or what was the pull towards having your own project? You could have been a sideman. You can be a sideman for the rest of your career.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm grateful, super grateful for all the people I played with over the years, and I hope I still play with some more artists that I haven't played with yet. But I think for me, like I started writing a lot of music And so this Vision Ahead was a perfect opportunity to have my music played, first off. And, I kind of wanted to be identified as an artist and as a band leader because, I think as a drummer, we're primarily leaders, but I just think, like my purpose is to lead. And so just recognizing that calling led me to, again, like really invest in myself and say, okay, let me put out a record. Let me, write music, and let me try to book shows and things of that nature. And I mean, I really enjoy playing with my band, and it's just kind of like, man, if I can do this all the time, then I will. And I think that's probably one of my, goals in this sense. Like, if I get called, to play with, Terrence Blanchard, I'm going to do it every time. If I get called to play with Pat Metheny, I'm going to do it every time. And, they're obviously established where, they have over 100 shows a year. And I think I'm at this trajectory where, Vision Ahead is getting known and they're putting out records and people are starting to understand. But I feel like we're not at our highest potential to, have these world tours. But I think it will happen soon. And so, I think when that does, I think it would be even a greater level because, again, we can get even deeper into the music because ideally, like, it's about playing, like just playing music. And I think that's just my goal. And I think that's like our goal to just like constantly play. Like, when you play in a band, let's say you have like a residency for a week, by that fourth and fifth night, it's just like amazing. And I think that's what makes, like the Messengers, so great. And, Miles Davis' second quintet. And you would hear these stories where they would just like play at like clubs for like a month or 2 weeks. And you kind of can hear like everything was played at such a high level because they're just constantly playing. And, a lot of times when you just start, you might just get a couple one-offs. You might not play as much. So I think for me, it's just like, that's definitely a goal of just like, if I can just keep playing with Vision Ahead over and over and over again, then it's be like success.
I'm thinking for maybe drummers who are thinking about starting their own band, maybe a little apprehensive about the finances of it. Did you have to, in the beginning, just understand you're going to have to invest some money in this? It's not going to be profitable right away. I mean,
oh, absolutely. I mean, but I think it's an amazing investment because, especially if you're doing it yourself, like you just learn so much. You learn about, how to put a record together. First off, like, you're going to open your ears about mixing a record, mastering a record. Like for me, of course, I didn't mix and master, but I was in the sessions with the engineers, and you'd be surprised. You'd be like, how much you can hear, and then how much, I guess, how much you'll learn. And so I think that's an amazing, experience, and I think, and as you do it more, you start to kind of like have a sound in your head of like what you want. But yeah, I think you definitely have to invest in yourself. I would say like save your money, and think of the long game. If you just think I'm gonna put a band together right now, just so I can, make a couple of dollars, it might not happen. 9 times out of 10, it's necessarily not going to happen. But if you're just like, okay, this year I'm going to, do this to get the band established, and then over time, it will definitely build. And I think it's about the narrative of you as an artist. You shouldn't necessarily like say, okay, this year I am going to arrive and this is going to be it. It's like, no, like you kind of have these steps where, you're growing and you accumulate things and to the point where like over time you've covered so much ground. So
how do you compose? Is it something that pops in your head? Do you sit at the piano, or is it at the drums? What comes first?
In the very beginning, it was definitely the piano. And so when I was living in New York, at the time, the whole band, we pretty much lived together. So the pianist had Taber Gable, he had a Rhodes in the living room. So I was playing the Rhodes like all the time. And, I consider myself like a frustrated piano player. Like I love the piano, and I have such a, I think I have such a mind for it, but yet it doesn't necessarily translate on, in my fingers. But, I'll primarily just sit down, just play chords. And then, I'll begin to hear something and I kind of catch a motif or catch a little riff and then kind of build on that. There's one song that I did like kind of compose on the drums. It was a song called 29. And I kind of was like just playing this beat and I like looped it. And then I kind of took each part as far as snare drum, bass drum, and hi-hat and kind of put it to like a note, which kind of had like this like rhythmic, pattern. And that was my bass. That was like, my bass foundation. And then, kind of manipulated, added some other notes or maybe changed up the harmony a little bit. But it was definitely like, okay, like this is the shape of the song and this is what's going to happen. So, I encourage all musicians to, learn some harmony, learn some theory, and, try another harmonic instrument, because I think it would definitely, open you up on so many levels, and obviously just like listen to music, because, there's nothing new under the sun. Like everything that we kind of write is something that we've heard or experienced before in some kind of way. So like, I think that's kind of part of it too. Like, when I hear an idea, I kind of get this imagination of just like, oh, this kind of can go here with this rock feel, but you kind of can mix it with this gospel feel, but then you can like put this like, big band thing on top, you know what I mean? And then like you just have this like palette, and then that becomes your thing. It becomes like your voice as a composer.
So what is a finished piece for you? Is it like, if you were to hand me the score, would it have bass parts and keys and sax and chord changes and a drum part, or would it just be a sketch of a melody and maybe some chords?
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a lead sheet, and then it's going to be a piano chart. And because, what I like to do is, to my piano player, like I give him like all my voicings, and he doesn't have to play them exactly, but at least like I want him to understand like the shape, like the harmonic shape, and which would kind of give him an idea, which is kind of like the same thing of like, getting a drum chart that kind of has like this implied rhythm, but you can kind of play what you want, but at least like this is the basic. So that's kind of like the same thing that I do with my piano player, where I'll kind of have all the voicings and things of that nature. And then on the lead sheet, it's just like pretty much the melody, chord changes, solo form, and just give it to the band and see what we can do with it.
Right. Do you write like intros and endings, or those kind of come about as you're rehearsing?
Yeah, I mean, again, for me, my compositions are always kind of changing. Like I might write, I'll bring the chart and then we play it. And I might say, okay, maybe for the beginning, how about you start it, or you set it up, or let's take it from, I'm constantly, manipulating it a little bit, just because, when I play on the piano, I hear it one way, but then when it's under the hands of other musicians, it kind of has new life and kind of adds another spirit to it. And then, again, if you're recording, I'm constantly open to just seeing what works and seeing what doesn't work. And I kind of did that a lot on this last record, where we recorded it, and then the second day I was like, man, like, what if we just tried it this way? And I was like, man, okay, that's the take, because again, it's like capturing or capturing the best message in this 3-minute window. You know what I mean? And so like how to be a good host to that message. I think that's kind of how I translate it to composition, especially recording and stuff.
So you've put out, looks like you've been on like a 2-year cycle pretty consistently. First record 2 years later, and now 2 years later with Poetic. Is that deliberate? Do you give yourself a goal, like we have to have a new record every 2 years?
No, I think it kind of comes across that way. And I think like the pandemic kind of like shifted some things, but yeah, it worked out that way. It does feel that way. And what's also crazy too is that all my records come out in May. It's the weirdest thing. Like I'll put out a record and then I'll be like, what's the date? I'm like, let's do sometime in May, you know? And so, yeah, shout outs to my publicist, Lydia Liebman. At this fourth one, she was like, hey, if like we've been doing it in May, you have to release this in May. So I was like, all right, cool. You know, May it is.
Now it's a cycle. So what was the inspiration for the new record? It's called Poetic, right?
Yes.
It's coming out May 13th. What was the overarching theme or concept?
Yeah. And so, you know, we recorded this record during the pandemic. I want to say February last year. And, you know, we had a couple of shows in like the New England area. And since I moved back to Connecticut, you know, I had like my own studio space. And so then that's when I was like, well, let's just get the band together, just record, and not really thinking nothing of it. I wasn't necessarily planning on doing an album, but I'm just like, since they're here, I got all this new music. Let's just, you know, go and see what happens. And then I told each band member to kind of, you know, bring a song for the band, which you think that'd be fitting, whatever. And so we just recorded all this music. And then I realized, like, I think we have a record, you know, because like I didn't really put an expectation on this recording session. I just let it be whatever it was. And so, and, you know, the reason why I kind of chose Poetic, I was listening to the music and I'm just kind of thinking about just like my direction and like where I'm trying to go in. And, you know, as an artist and as a drummer in my head, I was just like, well, you know, it's not so much of being super rhythmic or being, you know, super melodic or being super harmonic. You know, I just wanted to be, you know, lyrical. And I was like, I just want to be poetic. And that word just kind of resonated with me. And I think the sensibilities of poetry completely is parallel to improvisation, to, you know, the style of music that I play, you know, just embracing the abstract, embracing repetition, you know, as far as like the language and motion of a poetic piece. Like, I think those are kind of the aspirations that I want to have with my playing. You know, I want to, you know, embrace the abstract and embrace space and, you know, have motif ideas and, you know, just something that people can follow along. And there's a clear message when I'm saying, you know, I'm trying to be as articulate as possible. So I think that's kind of what resonated with me. And that's why I call it poetic.
Nice. So do you have any like guiding principles or guiding lights when you're improvising? Like what, you know, certain core rules, like when do you change? What, you know, do you take something to exhaustion? I mean, do you have any strategies you use for improvising?
I think one of my rules is like follow through. Like follow through with the idea. Because a lot of times, and especially for drummers, what I kind of hear is just kind of like one idea, and like not really connecting the dots, but trying to develop an idea and like taking like your time to really express and trying to be as articulate as possible. Like, so, I mean, a couple of things that I like soloing. Like, I don't necessarily like soloing by myself. You know, like there are times where they'd be like, okay, and now we're going to play such and such a song. All right, drums, like open solo. You know, for me, I'm just kind of like, do I really have to? You know, like, you know, because it's not the fact that I can't create nothing from scratch, but it's just I like playing, you know, with chords and with a form, because it's kind of like the same thing of, you know, we're playing a song and when it's their time to solo, everyone lays out and it's just them. You know, like they're going to feel out there and it's going to be naked as well. So like for me, like I don't mind, you know, if I'm soloing and someone else is kind of embellishing on something, or, you know, it's over a form or over a vamp, or the person just plays different chords, or, you know, I think it makes me respond differently. And also it's like a texture that I like to explore more. you know, but yeah, those are some of my roles.
So when you first play your first idea, do you commit and say, that's it, I've got to take this where it goes? Or if you just don't like it, you just abandon ship and, all right, let's do something else? Like, how far do you take an idea if you're not feeling it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I try to, you know, manipulate it in different ways. So it's just like if it's the velocity of it, you know, or like the speed of it, or different groupings, you know. If it's just like one idea, then I'm just like, you know, I'm not really crazy about it. Like, you know, let me try to cut the phrase in half and play it. I think there's different options to kind of work it out, you know, that I tend to do. I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with, like, let's say you like the idea and then you just abandon ship, you know, because that could be a theme, you know, like that phrase, and you do something different, and then you can go back to something kind of similar and do something different. So it's just kind of like, I think it's just being aware, being present, and being comfortable with being comfortable in the unknown. You know, I think that's kind of like what I try to do more than actually what I'm playing and if I like it or not.
So when let's say you're supporting another band member solo, I noticed with a lot of young and maybe inexperienced players, they're like listening, they're over listening, they're waiting to kind of be guided for what to play. So drawing the balance between, you've got your direction that's creating a texture, versus when do you then get involved with what you're hearing from them?
Yeah, I think it's just, for me, it's about responding, but I don't necessarily have to respond as like a parrot. You know, I think that's one thing that we always tend to do. Like, you know, if the saxophonist play da da da, you don't have to play da da da. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't always have to be, you know, a response in that way. But you know, I'm constantly responding to different like textures and colors, and also you know, tension too. You know, tension release. So. And naturally, I think everyone in the band, you know, I'm kind of listening subconsciously and like kind of responding of, you know, the certain feel that the bass player is doing, you know, the kind of chords that the pianist is playing, or the rhythm, or if it's, you know, legato or if it's staccato. I think it's just kind of like embracing it all and just like responding to it, not necessarily you know, like a call and response or like a parrot kind of thing.
Who are some of your biggest influences in this realm, in like interacting with interactive music?
I would say like Eric McPherson, Nasheed Waits, Lewis Nash, Ralph Peterson, Gerald Cleaver. Yeah, I would say like primarily, I feel like I'm forgetting someone else, but like, you know, but I mean, I love Kendrick Scott. Like, he's another one. Yeah, I would say like those guys, like I love how the feel that they put behind, you know, the music and their spirit, and how responsive they are. You know, and as, you know, complex and all those great things that they do, it always feels that it's within the music.
Right. Yeah. That's,
you know?
That's the art, right? How can you be dense, play dense, but not overbearing?
Right. Bill Stewart's another guy too. I forgot about. Yeah, I like Bill Stewart.
The new record reminds me a bit of Brian Blade Fellowship. Maybe that's just me being a longtime Fellowship fan, but maybe it's the texture of the Rhodes and the guitar or something. But was that a band that you were into?
Later on, a little bit. I mean, I have such a respect for Brian Blade. I mean, to me, he's present at all times. I just feel like even when he's not playing, he's present musically, you know. I think I met him one time, but that's just like the image that I have for him. Like, I mean, maybe when I meet him, it'll be maybe different, but like when I see him from a distance, I'm just like, man, this cat is always present, just like ready to serve, ready to serve the music and just be, a servant. But yeah, I think one thing that I try to pull from him or admire with his playing and his compositions is the arc of his songs, and it starts one way, and then it grows and grows into the climax, and then it kind of finishes into another direction. And so, yeah, I try to kind of write that way, and also kind of think ahead, when I'm playing or even constructing a composition, because primarily I want to make it fun and exciting for the listener just as much as the people in the band.
Mm. All right, we got to shift in some gear talk now.
Nice. Yes.
You've got crazy setups. I want to know, what is your current setup for anyone listening who hasn't checked it out? You've got like this sort of hybrid, ambidextrous, double hi-hat, double bass setup. So what is your current rig, and how the heck did you land on this configuration?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, it's constantly changing, and I think because like different setups just makes me play different, and I think like each day, there's just different moods, sometimes I kind of not envy, but like I guess I admire, the players that like this set up one way and like that's it. When I see, I can tell Abdul Stewart's setup. I can tell the Kenny Washington setup. Like, like without question, if I see the simplest certain way, okay, that's Abdul Stewart, that's Kenny Washington, whatever, or that's Tane, or that's Blade. But for me, it's like it's constantly changing because like I'm constantly just trying to pull something new out or see what other kind of patterns, or it's going to make me play different in a way that I like. Lately I've just been playing, as far as times 12, 10, 14, I kind of tend to change the 10 to 12. And like if you just do a roll around the kit, it's going to sound different. It's not necessarily going to be top to bottom. So that's kind of cool, like just harmonically. And the double hi-hat thing, I guess, when I play, I kind of, use the hi-hat in the same function of a snare drum in the sense of like the way that it comps and stuff like that. And so when I noticed, I kind of tend to do that with the hi-hat, I said, okay, like having another hi-hat there for another sonic color could be pretty cool, and I can kind of go back and forth between it, with different rhythms. I think that can be, be cool. And so that was something that I kind of, stumbled upon, like once I kind of saw the remote hi-hat at Guitar Center for sale, and I just, got it, and I was like, okay, cool. So that, that became a thing.
And you put it next to your bass drum pedal. That's the trick, right?
Yeah, I can put it next to my bass drum pedal, or I can put it next to my hi-hat too. So sometimes, again, there are times I've done both. So, I think you have to catch me on a certain day to see where it is. But yeah, I mean, as far as like something really simple right now is definitely the 12, 10, 14, playing with more crashes now. Like I kind of had this thing where it's like two ride cymbals at all times, and either it's going to be 220s or 221s or 222s. They have to be symmetrical. I don't know. That's just like my thing. And then sometimes I play with some crashes or a stack or a clap stack or whatever. But
are you set up most often with a right-handed configuration or a left-handed configuration?
Right-handed, configuration.
Okay.
Yeah. Rarely, if I do a left-hand configuration, I might have like a left-hand double pedal. So that way I can kind of do both. And then I have the remote hi-hat and the actual hi-hat. So each foot has a pedal and a hi-hat. So,
Are you left-handed, ambidextrous? What would you describe yourself as?
I think I'm primarily left-handed, but I mean, I write with my right. I bowl with my right, and I eat with my right. But everything else is pretty much like my left. And when I got into jazz, because I mean, when I grew up, I was like playing in church, so I was playing open-handed. Mm-hmm. So when I got into jazz, I remember my band director was like, "Man, you gotta play right-handed. All the greats play right-handed, like Max, Tony, Alvin, Blakey." And I was like, "Okay." So I started like swinging with my right hand, and then once I got into the Artist Collective, my teacher, Renee McLean, he kind of saw me switching. I was like, 1 minute I was playing here, next chorus I was doing this, and he was like, "Man, what are you doing?" You know, and I was like, "Well, it's comfortable with my left, but I mean, all the greats play with the right, so I'm just trying to." He says, "Man, do you like whatever feels comfortable? You play what's comfortable. You play how you can express." And I was like, "Say less. I'm right-handed." And then once I started to like research, and I like realized like who Will Kennedy was and who Lenny White was, and Billy Cobham. I was like, man, all right, like this gives me all the license to just go full throttle as a lefty. So,
what about the feet though? That's the part I can't get. I'm also left-handed, but I play a right-handed kit. But I can't switch the feet. Like controlling a hi-hat with my right foot, forget about it. Did you spend a lot of time with it?
Yes and no. Like there are times where I'll set up like full lefty and just like, play. And it's a little bit of a challenge, but it's kind of cool because it just makes you just react differently. For me, the hi-hat is not the biggest issue. For me, it's the kick, because for me, when I play the hi-hat, it's kind of like ball up a little bit. And so, and when I play the bass drum, primarily is like a heel down. Mm-hmm. And so for my left, like I'm not used to kind of doing both. For my right foot, it's fine. But sometimes I realize with my left, like I'm digging into the kick a little too much because my heel is up. So it's like it's trying to find that smooth balance. So that's what I've been kind of like working on as far as keeping my left foot cool to play the bass drum.
What are the drums you're using?
Ludwig. I'm using classic maple. And I mean, I'm going to just brag on Ludwig for a second. For me, these drums are incredible, and it's so tailor-made because when I got with Ludwig, we're talking about drums and shells and all these things. And so Yuli, which is the A&R of Ludwig, he was just like, "Man, like, you ever thought about mismatching your bearing edges?" And I was just like, "What?" I didn't even know that was a thing. And so with my kit, it's on the 10 and 12 at double 45 degree bearing edges, which kind of gives them more tone. And for me, with my rack times, I kind of like to tune them high. Mm-hmm. That's just my thing. Always, doesn't matter what it is, I like to tune them high. And then on the floor time at 14, it's a single 45. So that's pretty much a standard, size, which you kind of get, mid-range, some tone, low end. And then on my 16, I have a round over. So it's like all punch and it's all low end. So, so that right there kind of gave me like room to really like dial in my sound and really just explore it in such a way. And then I have a 20 by 12 or 12 by 20 bass drum, double 45 degree bearing edge. And like now, like I think that's like my favorite bass drum of all time. Like it's punchy, but yet it still has a tone. I can still crank it. And I mean, it's just so versatile that like it's perfect.
What's the snare drum?
I have a couple. I have a Copperphonic. I have a Superphonic that was my dad's, actually. that I inherited. And I think one of my favorites is the Super Series, which I think it's not a chrome over brass, or it might be, but I want to say it's not. But yeah, it's they call it the Super Series, which is like I think that it's just a chrome Louis snare. That's like probably my favorite, like all time favorite.
Are you using the 5x14 or 6.5?
The Copperphonic is 6.5, and the Superphonic is a 6.5, and the chrome snare is a 5.
Okay. So what makes you pick one over the other?
I prefer a 5, to be honest, because it just has that mid-range, has that pop that I like. And, with the depth, I can kind of set it up. For me, it's a little more comfortable. I mean, 6.5 is cool too, but sometimes it just kind of gets in the way a little bit when I set up. But yeah, a 5 is just like perfect.
So where do those drums live? Do they go on the road with you, or do they stay at home?
Yeah, they stay in my studio. Sometimes, and also I have an 18-inch bass drum too. So if it's traveling, I tend to bring the 18 out. But yeah, they're just in my studio, just recording, lessons, whatever. And also too, since October, I put together a series called the Parkville Sound Sessions. That's at the studio that I run from. And, I had about 6 concerts now where, like, in the big room, I put chairs, sell some tickets, and invite special guests, and I live stream it. And so that's another way that the drums got featured. But and also that's another way to kind of, have something for the community, play, and kind of like collaborate, partner. So, which is, I know I'm getting back into the business thing, but
You can't stop it.
Right. But yeah, that was a great way to kind of introduce the drums and kind of get acquainted with the outside of the small.
Those are the concerts that are on your YouTube channel, right? There's like a duet with you and your guitarist, and then those came out really nice.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, shout outs to Cedric Pillar, who's a fantastic videographer, and also a drummer as well. And I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go to the business thing. I think that's something really important in today's time. It's like not just documenting yourself, but just audio, but also video as well.
Yeah.
Before, recordings or tapes and CDs and all those things is like good enough, but now people have to see it to kind of believe it. So
let's talk about your cymbals of choice these days.
Oh yeah, Istanbul Agap, and I've been playing them since 2011. I've been probably endorsed with them maybe about 6 years ago. So my all-time favorite cymbal of all time is a 20-inch special edition Jazz Ride, 3 rivets. It has the perfect combination of like the tech articulation, but it's dry, but it's not too dry, and it works really well with rivets. So that's on my left, my main left, and then on the right, it's Istanbul Agap signature. With I think 4 rivets, square. That one is like amazing. And then 9 times out of 10 it'll be a 17-inch Exist Dry Dark. And the next one can either be clap stack, or what I was I took a 17-inch hi-hat top hat of the Exist Dry Dark. So I'll take the top hat and put that as a crash too. So I actually did that on my album Poetic. So I had 2 17-inch crashes. One was the actual crash, and one was the top of the hi-hat. And that just kind of, works well. Yeah, that's kind of my other setup. But I mean, honorable mention cymbals, there are times where I'll play 2 flat rides, which is again, my favorite flat ride is the 20-inch traditional, 20-inch traditional flat ride. And then I have the AGOP signature flat ride with 6 rivets. And as far as hi-hats, it'll either be the 14-inch medium traditional hats or 13-inch AGOP signature hats, or lately it's been the 16-inch 30th anniversary hats, which are super thin, but yet, it's like, easy to play, and the timbre and the tone sounds amazing.
Do you travel with those, or do you have like a B set that you travel with?
No, I travel with them.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, lately I've kind of been saving my favorite one, the special edition. I kind of keep that one home. But for all the other ones, I bring them on the road. But now, too, I must say, I'm getting into 21s because, as you probably know, like I'm mainly 20s all day, every day. For me, hearing Louis Nash, hearing Elvin Jones, Eric McPherson, like those three, they all play 20s. And I'm just like, and it's something about the feel, for me that I just love and resonate with. But I just got a batch of 21s that really just took me away. One is a AGOP signature 21 traditional original and a Turk jazz. And those, I think I'm going to have to take those on the road with the Vision Ahead tour because, it's almost like, it's that sweet spot.
Nice. What are if you had to choose drum heads, what would you use?
I'm personally in love with the Captones.
Okay.
Evans. So I'm an Evans guy. But on my drum set right now are the Evans Strata 1000s, which is the orchestral heads. And, I remember I was talking to Carter McLean about it, who's another Ludwig, ProMark, Evans, AGOP guy. So we have a lot in common. But I saw him do it, and I was just like, I didn't know if those prototypes, and then I realized it was orchestrals, and I put them on my kit, and I was like, wow, like this gives me, like the tone. It kind of opens the drum, and they feel great. So that's what I have. I have the Strata 1000s on top and on the bottom, cab tones, but primarily sometimes I just do cab tones on top and bottom.
Oh, no kidding. What about the bass drum and snare?
Bass drum, I have, it's crazy, a G1 clear. Really? Yep. I have a G1 clear on the bass drum, and on the snare drum. On the snare, I have on the chrome, on my favorite one, I just have a Ludwig factory head on it. And I think those are killing. Like, and I think they only make 14-inch snare heads, I want to say.
Yeah, it's like the Weathermaster, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, those, I have that one. But on the other ones, either a Strata 1000, still in the snare, or it's a G1. A G1 is just like, can't go wrong. You crank it, detune it. For me, and it's the vibe.
Well, we're getting towards the end of the hour, and I have a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
Do you have a pre-show practice routine or a daily practice regiment that you adhere to, or if not, what are you currently working on?
I've been teaching a lot, so I'm constantly, have like all these different concepts and hybrids that, I'm working on. Like, with some of my students, I've kind of combined stick control and syncopation together. And I won't necessarily, maybe after I'll share with you, but it's a thing. But let's say before the show, it's just kind of like silence. I like to just get into just like a mental state of what's at hand. So I'm constantly thinking about the music or seeing the potential of what could happen. And primarily, let's say like before the show, I might just get on the pad and just warm up. Like nothing too crazy, just just singles or doubles, or just take a rhythm and just kind of play it over and over and over again, just to get my hands loose and I feel like the sticks and the rebound doesn't feel foreign.
Mm. Yeah. Do you have to have a pad, or you just pick up some sticks and play on a chair or whatever? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, I try to bring a pad with me, but yeah, as long as I can just get the motion happening, I'm good.
Sweet. I think you also answered my last question, but I have to ask it because it's been an ongoing theme. What was your first snare drum?
My first snare drum was a 12-inch pork pie.
Wow.
Snare. Yeah. My dad got me. It was a 12-inch natural, like color, like a wood color.
Yeah.
And that was just like, I thought that was the best snare drum in the world, And even when people, because at one point small snares was a thing, and then it kind of went into piccolos, it went to big snares and all that stuff, and I still had the pork. To this day, I still have it, but that thing was just like, yeah.
Did you play it like cranked super high? Was that the sound?
And it was it wasn't the side snare, it was the main snare. So that 12, that was the thing.
So how often do you break that bad boy out?
I used it. I did speaking of that, the duo recording, I had a duo recording with my saxophonist, Godwin, and I put it's on the far left. I used it on that gig, not as a main, but as like a side snare. I used it.
I imagine it makes you smile every time you hit it.
Right. I'm just like, man, wow. Like so much memories. But yeah, it was weird. I didn't even know how I play the rim on it, because it's like the stick is so far out. But yeah, I was so about the pork pie snare.
What was your first kit then?
First kit was a Tama Rockstar.
Nice.
I got it, I want to say, I was in middle school, and my parents got me that for Christmas. Yep, it was like a metallic color, almost like a greenish grayish, and it was the 14-inch floor tom, had no legs. It was just the mount. The mount, and I was just like, ooh, like my snare. My tom don't have any legs. It's like in the air. I thought it was so cool. I thought it was so cool, man. Yeah.
So you got to lug a stand around for it everywhere you go.
Yeah, and get on the right angle for the sting won't tip over. I learned real quick. But at first I was like, oh man, legless.
How long did that kit last you before you had to get something else?
Until I got to college. And when I got into jazz, I was like, man, I need something else, And so I remember I went to Guitar Center, and I saw this DW kit, and I forgot what the guy said, but he kind of pointed at it, and I was like, well, no, I need some of the 18-inch bass drum. And he's like, no, that is an 18. And it was so far up there, I couldn't tell the size of the bass drum. And it was a Champagne Sparkle. And I guess he was just, and I'm thinking to myself, like, oh man, like I can't pay $2,400. And he's like, oh no, that's like the wrong price. Like, we've been marking it down, but they haven't changed the price, which is so weird. So I feel like I got it for like $1,200. It was just a 10, 12, 14, 18 as a collector's.
Wow.
And it was great. And I still have it to this day. And it was just like, oh man, like that, I felt like that was the kit for me. So yeah, that was the first kit I bought my own money, was the DW collectors.
That's a good find. You got lucky.
Yeah, I sure did. Yeah, I don't know if it was a mistake, but yeah, I guess supposedly it was marking the kit down and never changed the price.
Well, that's all for this episode. I thank you for sitting down. Everyone listening, go check out. It comes out on May 13th. Is there any preview tracks on Apple Music or something now?
April 22nd is my first single. It comes out. It's called Denim. And then May 6th is the second single that's going to drop. And that one is called South.
There we go.
So I'll be releasing two singles before.
Full record is on May 13th. It's called Poetic.
Right.
It's Jonathan Barber and I wouldn't say Steps Ahead, but it's Vision Ahead.
Vision Ahead. Yeah. Right. That's the other one.
Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right, now it's time for the shop talk section of the episode. This week, we're checking out a really unique Deri kit. This is a European stencil brand. It's similar but different to the Japanese stencil brand. So Chris at Hawthorne Drums and I had a good time talking about this kit, checking out some of its peculiarities, and then demoing at the end. So check it out, Deri kit at Hawthorne Drums.
This is another, I don't know, we can't call it a mystery kit because we know what it is, but it's another bizarro kit I'd never seen before. Would this be considered a stencil brand? It's
kind of,
okay,
in my opinion. So this is, it's an old Deri kit.
Deri. That's D-E-R-I?
Yes. So the funny thing was when I got this kit, I'd never heard of them. And I thought it was like Sari or something because the D is kind of like script.
Oh, they've got the right. logo in the thumb screws for the bass drum.
And I was like trying to figure out like what? There's nothing on the internet about these drums. And then I realized it was a D.
It does not look like a D.
Yeah, Deri, they again, not an expert on this particular brand, but from what I was able to gather, they were made in West Germany. So
okay, I would have guessed Sonar, just walking in the room.
They got the kind of German type,
so that makes sense. Yeah,
kind of the round over stick savers type hoops. You got the old, your favorite.
I hate the slotted rods.
Slotted rods. Yep,
the worst thing ever.
And they were made by a company called Tromsø. I think
okay,
it's Tromsø. And from what I gather, they were kind of they used to have these companies that would like own, I guess like Selmer might have been one, but like they own like various brands, right? So Tromsø, I think, did drums under Roxy was the like big imprint.
Okay.
And then Deri was another one. And from what I think, they were made to compete against the Japanese stencil drums, but they're better. We have the head off this drum. You can see on the inside, I'm sure you can, there's nice dust from the muffler that was 9,000 years old. They're beech shells. They got beech rings here.
Not Luan mahogany, so it's already an instant upgrade, right?
Yeah. Just overall better lugs. I mean, I think I wouldn't call them stencil, but they were definitely designed to compete with that. I love how you get some of these older drums. You can see where they were like measuring out where to put the lugs, the little pencil marks.
Oh yeah.
Also the world's flattest sparing edge. That's your thing. So we were trying to like demo this, and the kit has all original heads on it, and they're real thin. Frankly, couldn't get it to sound great. So we changed out. There was one unoriginal head on the rap tom, and we got it to sound okay, but it was rattling. So we took the muffler off. So that's kind of what.
Yeah, that muffler is completely dry rotted.
Oh yeah.
So that's not doing anything
great.
Except buzzing inside the drum.
So we took it off. I mean, I think the floor tom has a muffler. I think the snare drum has a muffler.
Bass drum has like a weird lever muffler with a twist knob. I'm not sure what that does. Does that do anything?
We call that the twist knob lever muffler. Try saying that 10 times fast.
Does it make it go like up and down? I don't even know.
I think if you twist it, it moves it in and out. Maybe it's like a micro adjustment, I think.
Yeah, I mean, cool, but gosh, if this was my kit, that would come off there immediately.
Germans are like really good at engineering. If you look at some of the 80s Sonar drums, it's like a feat of,
spectacular. I mean, you've got this.
I don't know how they don't have people on Mars already.
Well, what year is this?
Probably a 70s kit, maybe late 60s. Story behind the kit, nothing special. I got it off a guy who got it from a music store in New Jersey. And he said, hey, listen, the music store this came from, it's where Joe Morello taught.
Oh, is this?
So this could be
Russo's?
Joe's kit. It wasn't Russo's.
I mean,
I don't know the name.
Oh, man.
It's not Joe Morello's kit.
Glenn Webster owned the place.
Might have been it. But it's the guy who owned it actually got the name.
Oh, he said that Joe might have played it. This might have
owned it.
his.
Well, I don't know. It's that. Who cares?
It might have been where he gave lessons.
Stuart Kaufman has put like a little tag on the drums here. So, Stuart.
Wow. We should have looked him up first.
Yeah, got him on the podcast. Probably more interesting than me. Other cool things. So one thing that's interesting is, I don't know if you guys can see, but this has like a 3/4 inch inlay on it.
Big inlay.
But it's not an inlay.
Oh.
It's a veneer. So when we got the kit in, I took the claws off and it just came off. So this is like a 1/4 inch, maybe 1/8 inch veneer. We had to re-glue on
the whole thing, the black and the,
it's all veneer.
The sparkle.
Which is, again, probably another like cost-cutting thing. We're missing the tom arm here, which looks like it was a very reliable tom arm.
I love it. They just use whatever. I mean, they spent the time to like die cast these, but then you get this, whatever this was.
So, friends at friends at Nelson Drum Shop, Bryson and Lem, they had a Deri kit, and it was like wild. It was kind of like a trick sign kit, and it had like a big oblong bass drum, like some weird toms on like I think Matt Chamberlain bought it, but it was also Deri. This is the only other one I've seen. So, you want to show them the snare drum? How weird that thing is on there?
Again, it looks like a sonar from first glance to me.
So it's, you probably can't see this, unfortunately, but there's 3 rods in there. And it's kind of like a parallel system, but it's not, and it's really not that great. It kind of works. You do this thing here, and this moves it down. And then there's like a micro adjustment here. And on the other side, there's another adjustment. But it's got like these kind of janky, strings on there.
It's weird. That's an over-engineered system.
Yeah, it's not great, but it's cool. I guess it's a cool idea.
So both sides of the butt plate and the throw are connected by a rod that goes all the way, 3 rods that go all the way through the drum.
And what's weird is, like, if you see these on American drums, if it's like a parallel system, there's some sort of like mechanism on both sides that holds extended wires, so they go up and down equally. So I guess that's kind of the idea.
Interesting.
Original stay bill, plastic drum heads. It's like got a fake kind of coating on it to make it look like it's white, which it's definitely not.
It's just like a dusting of coating.
Yeah, dusting of coating. Sounds like a Bright Eyes album.
Quite an interesting kit.
Yeah, so this is, if you put like some time into it, like put some better heads on it, and maybe get the edges. Edges are factory, but maybe get them sharpened up. You probably have a cool kit. Oh, one other thing. This is 12x9 tom.
Yeah, that looks like a deep boy.
Yeah, usually they're 12x8. But again, I think we had that mystery kit that was a deep rack tom. Wasn't that one? Remember the one that was like foil we were talking about 2 podcasts ago?
I don't know.
But kind of another neat thing. So.
It had a 15. I remember that, right?
Yeah.
So this is a deep, is that 16x16?
Yeah, 16x16. 2014, 912, 16x16. I think this is a 4.5x14 snare drum.
I often wonder, were they just like looking at pictures and guessing? Like, I guess that's what we'll make. Were there no samples of what a drum set is?
Well, I think, I don't know the first thing about drum making. But I think the way now, like, there are machines that do all like that, but like it's really interesting. Like we talked about seeing some of like the hand marking on the drums. Like this stuff used to be made by hand by a guy.
Yeah.
Gary.
Yeah, right.
Gary who worked at Trom set.
Gary from Deri. Yeah, the re-rings are really kind of odd.
Like Gary's having a bad day or whatever. He's hung over and marks it in the wrong spot, and it's Friday, and he wants to go drink beer with his buddies. Who cares?
Yeah, you
know what I mean?
With a 12x9 instead of a 12x8.
Yeah, I had a standard. We did that standard segment. I had a standard snare drum, I think I told you one time. And I got it in, and it sounded horrible. And I'm like, what's going on with this? And I took the top head off, and they drilled the bearing edges on the wrong side.
You had the snare beds on the top?
The snare bed's on both sides. So like, you know, it's kind of, I don't know. I think it's like, obviously that's not good, but I think it's kind of neat. That's like making stuff by hand and, you know,
it's like
the machinery.
The old, the baseball cards that had the error cards.
The error card, the blem.
The blems.
Except all the drums are blem.
The real Billy Ripken. Remember that one? Are you too young for that?
Billy Ripken. How old was
his rookie card? No, it's been like 88. Someone had put F face on the butt of his bat. He didn't know it.
Oh my God.
And they printed it.
That's absolutely incredible.
Then they had to go back and do a bunch of edits. But yeah, you can still find the F face Billy Ripken rookie
You know that
card.
guy got fired.
So this isn't quite an F face.
No.
But
yeah, it's cool. We're going to try to get it tuned up and do a demo to see if we can get it sounding, but there's not a whole lot you can do with stable plastic heads, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so your tendency is to leave it and let the customer decide, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. I mean, like, I don't know. It's kind of, most of the heads were original, like, may as well leave it like it is. Mm-hmm. If it takes heads and, you know, people can know, we can just put new heads on it. I don't think it's a big deal. Some people like to hear videos. I mean, but not to get down the video rabbit hole. You know, we could do a video and then you get it in your house. It sounds completely different.
Right, of
but,
course. Yeah,
just kind of like part of the story, you know, good old Stuart Kaufman.
That's it. Deri drums. First I've ever seen. Let's see what it sounds like.
Here we go.
That's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like the show, please drop a 5-star rating and write us a review over on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, make sure you're subscribing to our YouTube channel, Drum Factory Direct. I'm posting all these episodes over there in video form. Thanks again for listening. Make sure you check out Jonathan Barber's new record, Poetic, drops on May 13th. Go check out some of the drums at Hawthorne Drum Shop. Make sure you go over to drumfactorydirect.com to check out any parts or accessories or special deals. We currently have a practice pad and drumstick combo that I think is $24.99 for a nice two-sided practice pad and some drumsticks. There's always some specials going on over there at drumfactorydirect.com. Thanks for listening. See you next week.